Hello friends, I'm Larry with Rides Done Right, and this is Journey to Track Days. Hello! Yeah! Boy, that was nice.
His car was already built by Strictly Street Rods. He got wiped out in the four-way stop.
I can have the most talented guy in there, but if he's not driving with the rest of the crew, he's the bad.
Drives the truck, drives the car, he flies the plane. Did you get paid 3 times? No.
This show, top 5 in America.
Well, Pat, we got through a day.
Yes, we did.
And you guaranteed a fun day, and it was a fun day. It was a blast. One of the things that we're going to do is you at 3 different sessions, you had a video equipment on your bike recording me, so you could actually come back and critique me. And we decided that at the end of the day, it would be a good idea for you to sit down with me and do that. Let's look at the video and then talk about things that are either going right or they're going wrong. Everything basically about the day, because even I think the last one was the last session.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so let's go to the first session of the day, which would have been this afternoon. And I'm trying to remember, was this first session the running the chicane still, or was this session that you did this one the first one with no chicane?
This was after the chicane was removed and we had the entire front straight available to us, so that coming out of turn 9 you could really accelerate to a high speed.
Okay. All right, well, let's run it and let's see what we got to say.
All right, we're coming into turn 1 here. And you're apexing 1B perfectly. You're going to the turn point for 2 that we discussed earlier. And if you recall, in this session, it's where I had the opportunity to be behind you and I could see where your foot position was. And I encouraged you at the end of this session to be on the balls of your feet, and that would allow you to maneuver more easily on the bike, and it would avoid your toe catching on the ground as your lean angle would increase, and then you would hyperextend.
So those that have ridden with me have seen that view many, many times, which is where my feet are pointing outwards. So I got like the heels on the pegs, and then my whole foot hangs over off to the side. And what Pat's saying is that's not such a good idea if you're going to go around corners and you catch a foot and maybe you don't have a foot later. So
yeah.
Okay,
and
so
it also allows you to maneuver your body on top of the bike. Think of receiving a serve and playing tennis. You're on the balls of your feet and you're able to move in either direction, and in this case you're also aware of keeping your weight off of the seat when you move your body from one side to the other of the bike.
Now you told me that, and my thought has always been, well, if I have the heels of my foot on the pegs, that's where I'm going to get the most strength and ability to move and connect with the bike. And so you put me on the balls of my feet in this next session, and I could not believe the difference on the bike, how much more control I felt I had with my feet in those positions, like you were digging in and actually could move around on the bike.
And also it allowed you to weight the inside peg in a turn. We talked about that, which makes the bike easier to turn. So there are many benefits to it, and you accomplished that in the next session very well.
So let's see. We have any more to look at in here before we go to the next one, or?
Yeah. This is a good old turn 4, and if you notice coming into turn 4, you see the drift. How you drifted in.
Yes.
And you remember I said stay wide and make a later apex?
Yes.
Okay, and you see where I am pointed? Where I am, I'm pointed down the track.
Yours looks pretty good. Mine does not look so good.
All right, and you can see where you are right here. You're pointed across the track. All right, so you're not able to accelerate, and to complete the turn, you're going to have to lean over further, which is less safe. All right? It also impedes your opportunity to get a higher speed, and the benefit of that higher speed, the entire length of what we call the back straight. So continue here on down towards turn 7 and see how we're doing. And keep in mind, this was, middle of the day, and you were doing quite well, to be honest with you. You're an excellent student.
Thanks, Pat. Well, you're an excellent instructor to recognize that I'm such an excellent student.
Now look at that apex. Perfect. Perfect in 7.
I love that.
Okay.
It's one of those corners where it makes it real easy. You were real strong on that today, throughout the day, saying these points right here. You would point to me when you were in front of me, and you'd say, "That's where we want to hit it. You want to hit this one right here."
Yeah, I want the discipline that you ride the line. The line is the fastest way around the track. Is also the safest way around the track.
Well, what I noticed, especially as we started going faster here in these last few sessions, that without that, it would have been a lot tougher. That actually made it a whole lot easier to have confidence to go into 7 with speed. I mean, if you had to have some speed, it was okay to.
Now, notice here that you're turning at just the ideal point to make the turn to sort of straighten out 7 and 8, but you're about 8 feet in from the wall, which means you made it a tighter radius. The wider you are, the more open the radius is. The more open a radius is in a corner, the faster you can go with less lean angle. All right? So that's part of the reason that I would be closer to the wall if I were leading you around. And then I would be turning right around the 0 marker there. And let's see how you continue through here. Perfect apex on 7. And then you straighten out 7 and 8. Okay, that's not bad. And just come over here, setting up for turn 9. And turn 9 was typically a problem, and that's not too bad there. You didn't go way wide on 9. So I would say, quite frankly, for the first time being behind you, that was an excellent show you put on.
Good.
Now we'll scoot on down here. All right, this was the first time braking hard into turn 1, coming in at high speed. All right, so this is your first opportunity to do that. You can see you're using engine braking, and you started braking way early, and I think, as we recall, because earlier in the day we were using the chicane, which is halfway down the track, you were braking based on that experience earlier in the day. I think later, as we came into turn 1, you were much more accustomed to where it was. So this was your first time solo into 1 with me behind you. All right, did you notice when you moved your body? Notice you're in the center of the seat right here. Now notice you're gonna start to turn the bike. See the lean start?
Right.
And that's when you moved your body. All right, let me put it back into normal play and you'll see that. Boom, did you see the bounce?
Yeah.
All right, you moved your body just as you leaned the bike over. A good rule of thumb is you should have had your lower body moved over before you even thought about braking or slowing the bike down. So a good rule is never start braking for a corner if you're sitting in the center of the seat. Okay? Move your lower body over, and then when you start the lean for making the corner, that's when your upper body moves over and down. All right? And we weight the inside peg because we're on the balls of our feet.
Okay.
All right? Nice. Nice. You set up beautifully for 2. See? Excellent. Now here's turn 3.
At least I do see my helmet looking up the corner.
And as you recall, we had discussed earlier when you were going much wider than displayed here.
Right.
Complete the turn.
Right.
Don't get on the power before you have direction. And you're showing that you were listening here because you were that much tighter on this turn. You didn't drift way wide.
Yeah.
So perfect job. Excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, that changed the whole afternoon for me on that corner. Not that I didn't screw it up again later.
All right, you see the drift?
Yes.
See, you're drifting
Yes.
in, and there's a big tendency to do that because people feel it's safer to be closer on the inside. And so we drift in, and that forces us into an early apex. And most all the time, we want a later apex because it will point us in the direction that we're going to want to go and allow us to get on the throttle. An early apex is going to be pointing you across the pathway that you want to go, across the track. So you cannot start to accelerate because you're not pointed in the right direction. You see where I am?
Yep, right on the apex.
See the drift? There's your zero marker, all right?
Right.
On the right wall. And I'm just repeating what we saw before. And you're at mid-track. If I were on your right side over by the wall, who could have a wider radius turn?
You do.
And the advantage to that is
You're going to carry more speed.
more speed with less lean angle. All right? Perfect apex. Perfect joining 7 and 8 together. Excellent. Good job. Much improved over this morning. So, I think what we're going to see is this replicated over and over. Would you like to go to the next?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
All right, we have some traffic in front of us here. Again, and I didn't point it out to you after the last session, but you notice where you moved your lower body. Okay, it was when you began the lean angle to enter turn 1. All right, you don't want to do that at that point. You're asking the suspension to do too much. And this is good. You're accommodating the traffic in front of you, but you're still riding your line. Excellent, excellent. And this is not going to be all compliments, but I compliment you leaving turn 2. Even though you weren't way off the bike, but you were appropriately off the bike for the speeds we're going to the right, you then transition for turn 3, which is a left-hand turn. You transition with one single movement from the right to the left. Many people in their early experience on the track or even on the street, they'll come back to the center of the bike, stop, sit down, and then as the turn comes closer, then they'll initiate getting their body off to the left side. One motion saves energy and less disruption on the bike because we weigh a fair amount compared to the bike, so every time we move on the bike, it affects the suspension. All right, we're coming out of 3 into 4. You stayed a little bit wider that time. Just, yeah. You see where I am, and you see what you had to do.
Yeah.
You had to do that quick, hard turn.
Yeah.
All right, which meant you actually leaned the bike over more. All right.
More work to do
More
what
work
you were doing
and-
easier.
and- yeah. You want everything to flow. Even when we have turns that are close to each other in opposite directions, we still want it to flow. Left, right, not jerky. Everything we do on a bike, the way we move our body, the way we roll on the throttle, the way we apply the brakes, smooth. That's the secret. I'm going to back you up here, and you see we're coming in. You notice where your position is. Okay, tight. So had you been a little bit wider, but look what it did to you for turn 8. It kept you in the center of the track, as opposed to being over where the apex
Right.
is. I got you on the outside of the track because you were passing through 7 and 8 in the center. It forced you to the outside. And you did hit your turn point for 9, which was good, but you had to make a correction to do it. You love to accelerate. Can
It's
see you
fun.
doing it there.
Yeah, we had some fun there.
And I'm going to scoot us a little further down. All right, right here, what I noticed, and I do recall this, was you're modulating the brakes, but a little too much. Remember, lighter, longer on the brakes? So it's a smooth movement of the brakes, not herky-jerky at all. And the amount of brakes in that middle 90%, we talked about the initial 5% to establish a larger contact patch, to set up the suspension for the turn that's coming up. Then you have the middle 90% of your braking available to you, and you modulate that based on your eyes looking to the corner ahead. So that's your speed control. And then as you lean the bike to make the turn, that last 5% is your trail braking, and that becomes a geometry control. It controls the radius and the way you're coming into the turn. So you want to be smooth here, not back and forth.
What I remember about this was we had just come off of the straight, going fast down the straight, and came up on this gal pretty quick. And so when I started braking, I was questioning whether or not that exact technique, whether I should stay on the brakes slowly like I was going, or whether I should keep modulating them, not knowing necessarily when it was going to be time to put a steady pressure of brakes in. And I think my mind was just trying to remember, what am I supposed to do here? Because my head was saying, well, just go on the inside and get by her. But then I knew that's not what we're supposed to do.
Right. There are certain rules and restrictions in the group that we're riding in that prevent you from doing that. So you really have to accommodate the rider who is in front of you. And as a general rule for track days, whenever you pass somebody, you pass for that rider's comfort, not your comfort.
Right.
Because you don't know, you know what you're capable of, but you don't know what their comfort level is. So those were good calls that you made. And again, it's additional seat time in a track environment.
Right.
So as you see this happening, you'll have a better understanding as to what to expect from the person in front of you. And you did the safest thing. You created a gap so that there won't be a problem. And I'm noticing that you do have your feet up now. You're on the balls of your feet much better, as we discussed from the last session. And that's really nice to see. Perfect apex on 2. So your discipline has improved significantly from this morning. That's good. Very good. And you're accelerating out of 3 too. That's interesting. We're coming through 4. Better. And I can see the improvement here because on our break in between the sessions, we talked about finishing the turn, having direction. You were coming on with the throttle too soon and not pointed in the right direction. And that would tend to drive you wide in coming into the turn, which would destroy your departure. This is a sport of turn exits. And what I'm looking at here on the left side of you, where I came up around there, was to see your handling of the clutch lever. Exactly. And we discussed the clutch lever and how far you have to pull it in. And you discovered that it really wasn't necessary to pull it in more than, a quarter, half inch at the most. And that allowed your RPMs to stay up, and you remained in the power band so that you had a smooth transition as you went down through the gears.
It's one of the many tips that I learned today that are going to affect my street riding the rest of my life. I mean, it was something that once you see that and understand, I always thought that something like that would be harder on the engine, and it actually is easier on the engine, and it's easy to do, and it's a faster way to do it. I mean,
and it's safer.
Yeah, I mean, everything
because
about
the
it
RPMs
was,
stay in the proper range for the gear that you're going to, as opposed to falling off, because the amount of time it takes to pull the clutch all the way in, which is not necessary when you're downshifting. And so the quicker you can do that, the less the RPM drop is, and the more you remain appropriately in the proper power band for the gear you're going to. You're really picking up your speed now. You can see we're going considerably faster. I had to work hard to catch up with you.
yeah, you had to work your R1 a little harder, huh? Had to go into second gear.
Now, when I look at this versus this morning in your first three sessions, I'm looking at a different rider. Seriously.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, you're riding the line. When we talked about being on the balls of your feet, we talked about a report card for when you begin to lean the bike into a turn, you're weighting the inside peg. And weighting the inside peg allows the inside arm to be loose, not stiff. If you don't do that, your inside arm's going to be stiffer, and you're fighting the opposite of turning the bike. So I think you, as I recall, you mentioned after we discussed that how much easier it was to turn the bike. Weight the inside peg and check yourself, and you can see the results of not doing it. So make that your habit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're coming out of 3 into 4. Okay, now this is you're off the left side of the bike because turn 3 was a left turn. And what you're doing here, what did you just do? You're below our body.
Shifted, yeah.
What'd you do with your body? You're off the left.
Right.
Okay.
I shifted my body in anticipation of the next corner.
Where did you put your body?
Looks like I stopped center on this.
That's right.
Instead of going straight from left all the way to right.
So let's see if you move it again. Oh, what'd you just do?
I moved it again.
All right. And what should we be doing?
Going straight from the left all the way to the right, be in position so
Perfect.
I could start going around.
Just like you did when you came out of turn 2 earlier, you were off to the right side, and you, with one motion, which I complimented you about, went to the left side. Okay? It's a very short distance between turn 3 and turn 4. In a case like that, you don't have a long straight. It makes sense. One body motion from the left side for turn 3 over to the right side for turn 4. You'll work less hard. The disruption to the suspension will be reduced, and you don't want to be shifting your weight like that as you're asking the bike to turn in. So it's all done ahead of time.
Missed my apex again by three-quarters of the track.
Use your eyes. Stay ahead of the bike, and use your eyes. The two silver bullets in this sport are eyes and focus, and brakes. Those are the two silver bullets. There he goes. You're on the throttle. You like speed, don't you?
I do like to go fast.
Well, you can go fast. Just have the right technique. Did you see that with the clutch? Watch your left hand. All right, watch it. back it up a little bit here. All right, watch your shift. See it? See it? What were you doing?
I pulled in too far.
You're pulling it all the way in.
Yeah.
And you've learned that's not completely
That's right.
necessary, all right?
Yeah, it was the last few laps, it was a combination of that. It's that I would do it correctly, then I come into the next corner, and old habits, take a little while to die, and that's part of it. And I noticed the difference. The funny part of it is when I would do it, I saw it was better, and you go into the next corner and you're going, okay, I know that's what I want to do, and yet that old habit's still there. So a lot of the things I learned today are just going to take a while to actually get to where I can apply them, and they're second nature.
It's so much easier to create habits than to change old habits.
Right.
And this is an example, but the point here is that you have seen it, you do understand the benefit, and you can check yourself.
Mm-hmm.
None of us go around and do a perfect lap, ever. So we're always checking ourselves, and we find things that we maybe are fundamental, techniques that we fully are aware of, but we need to keep checking ourselves. You've done an amazing transition here with a lot of different things that we've talked about that are old habits, and you get all that stuffed into your brain. Sometimes it's too much, and it's over 90 degrees outside.
Right.
So. Good apex, or entry apex. Good, much closer on 9. Big improvement there. And I'll accelerate us down the front straight here. I think what I was trying to show you here, where I accelerated by you, was that you could have gone a little bit further into the corner before you needed to move your lower body over and then start your braking.
And I was actually liking that, because we would both we were coming up beside it, and I know there were times that I would do it and then you would slow down right when I did, but in that instance right there, you carried it on, and I totally got that what you were doing. You wanted to show me this is where you could have gone and where you should have gone. And I know one thing. For me, there was a lot of psychological stuff with the big front straight. It's the main thing that I want to do is those long straights here, and we had a half a day of them. I think we had 3 sessions with them is what I wound up getting, and it takes a little getting used to. What I'm not used to doing is going from a high speed and then transverting that high speed into such a hard braking area down into a corner like one. So part of that's just trying to get the nerves going to where you're how far are you willing to go in there and still maintain knowing that you'll get down to a speed that's going to set you up to what the rest you've been doing all day.
Right, and baby steps, not giant leaps when we're moving our reference point for braking.
Right.
But we did also talk about something that was very important, and that was trusting your equipment, trusting what the bike is capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, many people never really get to understand what these bikes are engineered to do, and they end up in one of those moments where they question whether or not they can continue through a corner, and they give up, stand the bike up, and they look exactly where they don't want to go, and the bike goes where you look, as opposed to going across the track or across the street in yellow lines and into oncoming traffic or over a guardrail. The thing that we try and let people be aware of out here on the track, and we get to repeat it over and over and over again, is trusting that your bike can do the job. And what these bikes are capable of is absolutely unbelievable to most of us. And every time we come into turn one, if we have one of those moments where we lack the confidence that we're going to make the turn, 98% of the time the bike can do it. So don't interfere with what the bike can do. Look through the corner, trust the bike, and you can trail brake to reduce your speed, as opposed to standing the bike up and going, I'm not going to make it, and pointing it exactly where you don't want to go off the track.
You had said that to me at the end of one of the sessions, and when I got to the end of the last session we were on, I got to the end of the straight, and had that feeling like, okay, I pushed a little further than what I'm comfortable with right now, and I had that instant thought in the back of my head, ooh, am I entering too fast? And what was really nice for me was that rather than that entering into my mind, oh, I'm not going to make it, it was exactly the opposite. I heard your voice saying, hey, settle down, the bike can do it, just get in there and make it happen. And once I did and leaned and got in, it just wasn't even an issue. I can say I got through the day, surprisingly to me, I got through the day without a pucker moment. And when you can go do a track day where I was pushing things, I did some things today I've never done before, and the fact that I didn't have a pucker moment, I don't see how that's not a win. I mean,
no, it's a big win, but also describing what you described going into turn one, where you say my voice was in your head from what we had discussed earlier. The more often that happens, the more confidence you build. And we talked about your skill level and where you operate. And instead of operating up here on the bare edge, we operate down here and improve our skill level. Then we can move the level up that we operate. And it's those kinds of experiences, like in turn one that you just described you had, that give you that confidence and give you that trust and show you that, oh, my technique is working, I can go around the corner. So that's just one little example of what the track offers and how it increases safety, because the riders leave the track not only with an enormous smile, but an increased level of confidence. And the more confidence we have from experience, the safer we're going to be when we're challenged.
well, Pat, I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it today.
Oh, me too.
You are an outstanding student. Everything that I said to you, you incorporated into the next session. And I think you're going to go home tonight and write down a lot of notes so that when you come back out to the track, you can one by one deal with those, not take all 10 items out there for each session. That's 10% of attention on each item. It's not going to help, as opposed to 100% fix one thing, make it your habit pattern, and go forward from there.
Yeah, you do. You have got me down. So, and that is my intent, is to take some of the things that I know I can put on the street and make them become a habit, so that the next time I come back, I can have those in my toolbox as habits that will then let me work on those other things that really I can only work on here.
Sure.
And looking forward to it. So we're looking forward to more days, and we'll see you guys. Pay attention to these things, because we are going to be back. Pat's going to be back. We know we got some stuff that we're going to do this summer, so keep watching and look for more Journey to Track days. Bye-bye.